All right, we are going to go ahead and get started with our meeting for today, January the 11th, 2024, for our work session. We're going to call the meeting to order at 5:10 p.m. Dr. Hooker, if you would conduct roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley, Ms. Claudia Butts, Ms. Linda Davis.
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager.
Here.
Mr. Tim Denton.
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson. Here. Dr. Lakeisha Gant.
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hull. And Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. We do have a quorum, so we are going to move forward through our work session agenda. The very first item is our board president report, and we see here that we have the nomination of president and vice president, and so that takes place tonight, and then we take action on that at our work session. I think we may be waiting on a few more people, so I am gonna move that to later in the agenda. Let's just say we'll put it right before the option for executive session so that everyone can be here and participate in that process. That was item A. Item B is our appeal process. We have had a few conversations about our appeal process for students and what is involved in that. And one of the things that we thought would be beneficial is that we brought this forward so that we can have, one, so that all of us can be on the same page as far as what the appeal process looks like, but also in the event that there are any like policy implications or there are some things that we might need to tweak and change, that conversation is had publicly. And so while the goal tonight is not necessarily to have a final product, it is to start the conversation. And so you may see this, you will likely see this as a discussion item in the future and maybe even action that needs to be taken. But we did want to put it out there so that we could talk a little bit more about it. It is a public conversation that probably needs to be had as far as what that process looks like. So when a student and a parent attend an appeal, what will happen and what is said. And I think we've been working from just a document that we've had for a while. And if you open up what's inside of our agenda, this just gives us the procedures, but you'll also see at the bottom of that it lists the script and like who has time to speak, who doesn't have time to speak. I know, there's been some questions around like who can come and who cannot come, things like that. And so this is just an attempt to start that conversation. Again, we won't, tonight, I don't know that we'll actually make any specific changes, but this is a time to start the conversation so that changes that do need to be made, they can be made within this next month or so, okay? So the floor is open for any thoughts around our appeal process, and I'm gonna also, defer to you, Dr. Hooker and Mr. Pruitt, if there's any additional information that you would like to add that we should keep in mind as we're navigating the appeal process. Any questions or thoughts from, Dr. Yeager.
I believe it says on this document that the appeals to the board are solely on the record, and there's a state law that's cited after that sentence, and I think that was some of the confusion, at least not confusion, but discussion that I've had, is that do families understand that the appeal process can only draw from the original hearing, that no additional information can be brought to the appeal? And I just want to make sure that the families know that that's the case so that they bring everything they've got to that first hearing and not hope for more information at the appeal. Have I got that? Do I understand that correctly?
Can you, I'm sorry, you don't have to repeat everything, but can you
Sorry.
say the tail end of that?
The tail end being, do the families at the first hearing know that that they have to bring everything to the table at that time and not hold on to something for an appeal later, that only the information at the original hearing is available for the appeal?
Dr. Yeager, that is correct, and I believe the packet that is sent home to the parents concerning the hearing shares that information with them as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and so so they are aware. Dr. Hooker, do you know if when they are told that it's solely on the record, is it explained to them that, you know, in the term, and I don't know if this was your question, that is what this means, like, or like that you can't add, like, are those terms, is that phrase communicated to the family or what?
Dr. Scott, I'll refer to you, but I believe when Mr. Cobb or either Ms. Tessa Barbazon is contacting these parents concerning appeals, they explicitly spell this out to them when they come to the meetings. Dr. Scott.
So parents must receive a notification letter which outlines the process for the actual disciplinary hearing, and then Mr. Cobb will sometimes follow up, especially if a parent has asked additional questions. They have his contact information. He has often gone over the full process with parents so that they are aware of what they should be prepared to provide or to present. And so there is an actual letter which outlines the process for the hearing, but then also that there would be an appeal process should they would like to appeal the decision.
All right, thank you. Any additional sort of feedback as Mr. Denson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, and I understand this is a challenging thing, and I'm not sure how we could get there, but I think it's something that should be brought up that we can at least think about. Is I know, and it's not, maybe not this document, but when I've looked through the appeals process elsewhere, it does say that the student and parents are allowed to have legal representation to come forward. And something that I've noticed is that is a great advantage, I think, to the advocacy of the parents and the student. And just realizing that that is also something that is very costly and that is going to be something that a lot of families aren't going to have the access to. And so it very much makes a bit of two different worlds, I think, depending on if you're able to show up with an attorney or if you're not able to. And so if we're able to even explore ways of, say, agreements with the Public Defender's Council, we're seeing if other places have done such things where, if necessary, representation could somehow be provided to someone who cannot afford it in the same way that happens in legal proceedings. I know it's not an obligation that we have, but I think it would really help. It would bring equity to this process. So.
And Mr. Denson, whether they have an attorney or not, no new evidence can be presented. So we're just going through the transcript of what the hearing officer what has been recorded, but no new evidence is presented, whether they have an attorney.
And attorneys be able to, and it's the same reason that we have, the school district has legal entities helping to argue our side. I'm the same. It's something that we obviously realize is something that's available. I think it does give a benefit if you're to have an attorney. And yeah, it's something I think that would be helpful to explore, to be able to find an equitable way to be able to transverse these hearing processes.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional feedback? Dr. Yeager.
If no one else, I want to wait for everyone to have their turn before I ask a second question. But
Okay.
if no one else has anything. The other issue was whether we had all of the data from the district in terms of the contacts with parents. Remember, there was a few cases where we weren't sure that the parents were contacted and we didn't have the data. Is there a mechanism for ensuring that information is presented at the hearing or brought to the hearing?
Yes, Mr. Carb usually works with the administrative team to ensure that all of that information is included in the packet. The instance in which I believe you're speaking of, we were able to resolve that the parents had been contacted. Maybe they didn't remember the contact, but they had been contacted, and usually that information is found in campus, is documented in campus concerning that matter. So,
Ms. Davis?
Yes, I want to say one, I actually am very pleased with the progress that we've made and the absolute uniformity of all of the cases that I've sat in on. All of the information seems to be expected. There seems to be a checklist there. There seems to be validation that the proper steps have occurred. So I really like process and how it has influenced it over the years, and I feel comfortable with that. I don't feel as comfortable, again, with when the parents do enter the room, and yes, it's in the letters that were sent to them, and I'm sure they learned it at the original hearing, that there wouldn't be any new evidence allowed. That seems to be the only sticking point that I've experienced in the 3 or 4 hearings that I've been to this year, or in this school year. And other than that, I really want to commend the staff for being very thorough. I've never, ever had this experience where we actually had the videos and we were able to see the evidence that was presented. So I am very pleased with that process. I don't think anybody's ever going to be happy about their child being brought up on a disciplinary hearing. And so I will take it back to the only place that I ever have issues with, and that is a matrix that demands punitive action for things that can very easily maybe be seen a different way.
Thank you. Ms. Davis? Any additional thoughts or feedback? Dr. Evans, Ms. Butts, okay. Ms. Hensley, Dr. Anderson?
I'll double back to Dr. Yeager's and Mrs. Davis's question on parents having a full understanding of what it means to not introduce new evidence. I think that when parents appear at the hearing and they're given 15 minutes to speak, what tends to happen, as with everyone else, is your emotions kick in and you're defending your child and you're thinking about how to best represent your child's intentions and who they really are as individuals, and that does present an introduction of new evidence. It just it happens very organically, and I think it will happen whether they understand what that means or not, because you're a parent defending your child. And so I guess the question for us, and what Mr. Pruitt has concerns about, is when we do say parents have 15 minutes, how do we create a parameter that those 15 minutes happen in a way that we are not crossing over those boundaries? Are there procedures that we can put in place where those 15 minutes we ensure that additional things aren't being introduced? Or do we cut the 15 minutes off? Do we eliminate the 15 minutes, or do we reduce that time? I think that's the bigger question here. How do we fix that problem? Because that is the main problem that we are seeing at our hearings. And I will also add that there also seems to me that when you have a situation like that, as board members, we also are tending to introduce new information. We're introducing questions about what we see on the record, and the questions oftentimes introduce new details or new information that we're asking because we don't fully understand, and so there's that as well. And so if there are ways that we can create procedures or parameters that fall within what Mr. Pruitt would like for us to, those boundaries, those limitations that he would like for us to stay within, I think that that's where this sort of procedural document has some space for changes.
Thank you for that feedback. The only thing I'll add is that I would agree. I think there are maybe some procedural things, and I think that probably would rest with your office, sharing, sort of tightening up this process. I will like to express support for the idea. I don't know that obviously is something that would happen within the next month or so, like once we tighten these processes up. But I do want to express my support for the idea of students having access to some sort of representation to equal that playing field when they enter a room, particularly as procedures are changed, and especially if we move to a place where we are simply looking at the data, looking at the information, and not taking any statements or clarifications, and just taking action on what we see. I think it's critically important then that students have access to representation before they get to us, so that they have been able to explore all of their options before it gets through the appeal process. So I did want to just support my support for that, and then just emphasize some of what you mentioned, Dr. Anderson, here, because there are times right now that we have listed on this procedure where it says, like, the hearing officer presents the case, right? So everyone is held to the same standard that no new evidence is presented, and we all struggle with that, right, as a board, as parents, and things like that. So yeah, I think as we look at the procedures, I would like to express my support and recommendation that we look at the procedures for everyone that's involved. The hearing officer, the questions that we are allowed to ask. So board members, again, you see down below where it says, would the hearing officer like to make any additional comments? And then before that, we defer to the parents for the 15 minutes. And so definitely support looking at some procedural things, and would think that it's important to look at procedures for everyone that's involved in the process.
Just want to remind the board, when we're talking about seeking representation in possible school, seeking out others to help with, you have a small window. You only have 10 days to do that. We have to be reminded of that. I don't know if it's our preview to solicit parents to attorneys, that's their responsibility. I don't know if it's our job to tell them who to go see or what of that nature. Mr. Pruitt, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, that is not our responsibility. But if a parent wants to, as Mr. Denson has stated, Georgia Legal Aid, the other agencies that are around here, they can utilize those, but that's not our responsibility. And you have to remember, once we receive that letter, you have 10 days, business days. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, sir, that's right.
10 business days to make this happen.
Well, and I think I can't clarify for Mr. Denson, but on my behalf, I'm not saying share with parents, like, this is who you need to go see. But what I am saying is, if there are resources out there, to be sure that parents are aware of those, and whether they be legal resources or advocacy, we've seen it. Well, we've seen a range of things, and so while I certainly hear Dr. Hooker and Mr. Pruitt that it's not our responsibility to find legal counsel, I do think these are our students and they'll be returning possibly at some point, and so being sure that they have access to any resources that will help them navigate this process, I think that is something that that we should do as a school district. So I do understand what you're saying as far as our legal responsibility, but I would like to see our students have knowledge and families have knowledge of what's out there to help them navigate this discipline process, even before it gets to us. Mr. Denson?
I guess I had just one more question. Because I think, definitely good points brought up with that. I think a lot of times, that the families just come into these things maybe unprepared and not fully understanding the process and expectations of them in this. And that's one of the reasons I do think that representation could help them. But I think that issue probably goes all the way back to the original disciplinary hearing in general, not just the appeals process. And so I do wonder, I guess my question is, so I know that new evidence cannot be presented at the appeal. Is the student, the parents, they're able though to present evidence during the original disciplinary hearing, in which that would be then included in the appeals process? Is that correct, Mr. Pruitt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so I wonder if and this document's not here in front of me, so I'm wondering if there's a way that we could clarify maybe more thoroughly that it behooves the parents and the student that they are presenting all evidence that they think might be necessary anywhere in this process at that disciplinary hearing, and making that really understood that if you get to this point, the appeals, like you could only rely upon what you've already presented in the first place. So therefore, it is very important that you have gathered and presented all evidence that you might need entirely in this process at that first step. And so I just wonder if there's a way that we can make that maybe a little bit more clear. And again, that's one of those places where I think maybe having representation could help them. I think this problem that we're trying to, it's not a problem, but the way that we're trying to improve this process might need to go all the way back to that original disciplinary hearing, not just the appeals process.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hull?
So I'm coming in and piecing together the comments, but in my professional capacity and dealing with families, right, that come into these hearings, the problem, at least from that standpoint, doesn't seem to be they don't understand what their rights are. It's more of not understanding that this is a hearing and not a meeting conversation. So I think there's the ability, parents always seem to have the videos, the witnesses, they have the information, but there's an assumption that this is going to be a sit-down conversation with an administrator and not have the formality of a hearing. And so I think they show up ill-prepared, understanding that, or not understanding that, no, this is a real hearing and it has consequences, so you cannot introduce new information at the appeal stage of it. So I don't know how you address that other than making sure they understand the importance of the hearing and it not being a meeting, but I don't know if, that's my contribution to that.
And so I wonder, I mentioned at the beginning that there would not be necessarily any type of tangible something that we take action on tonight, but I did want to open up the floor so that as Dr. Hooker, in consultation with Mr. Pruitt and staff, as they look back at at this process and make those necessary changes, they would just have an idea of what the board's thoughts are. And so if I could, Dr. Hooker, what do you all think might be reasonable as far as having like a draft of this current procedures with any recommended changes from Mr. Pruitt? Do you think that would be reasonable for February, for March? Or?
I think we need an opportunity to really study this and see best practices across other districts. So I would not rush and say we would have something ready in February. If you can give us until March, we have something already on the agenda for February. So March, that would give us an opportunity to do research and come back and give some recommended additions or subtractions to this this process or procedures that we currently have. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. If there's no other feedback, we will continue to our next item, which is information. These are informational items and our board community reports. My computer is stalling right now, so hold on one second. Yep, our early Head Start Policy Council meeting minutes. Any additional information to add or discussion there?
I'll just say that they elected some new parents to the board along with new officers, and it seems like a really strong group that's very engaged. So.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Denson. Any follow-up questions or discussions about early Head Start? Okay. We will move to the Athens Community Career Academy. My computer here is, but while it's changing over, any additional discussions on the Career Academy report that we have? We have our governance board notes there, Ms. Davis.
Yeah, I do have, and let me apologize, I did not get these read in time to put these questions on our question sheet. So I can certainly take my licks and put them on the question sheet for somebody to follow up later, but I think these are probably simple questions, if I may. So you guys can tell me how you want to proceed. I just want to understand a couple of things.
All right, can you speak a little bit louder into your microphone and at least maybe list those questions, Ms. Davis? I guess it just sort of depends on what is being asked and how many.
Okay, so they're pretty straightforward. The first question is, what is a YAP, Y-A-P? And that was a YAP student, and that was in the section under the actually enrolled students, probably under the work-based learning update. Is there somebody here from the Career Academy? If not, I can just email these.
I am not sure of
Okay.
the academic youth apprenticeship program. Thank you.
I like it, thank you. And then the next question, we don't have anybody here. The,
Sorry.
under the credits that were earned, is everybody looking at that report? I'm not looking at it right now. There were some credits that I wasn't sure if I understood what it meant when you had there were 5 credits with, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my note right now. For A45, is that right? You had 400 and something credits under the dual enrollment, and my question is, was that for the year, or is that for since the Career Academy started? It's 444.5.
I would think that was for the year.
So far.
Yes.
Okay, great. And what is a TCC, Technical College Certificate?
Yes.
I guessed that. All right, very good. And what was that last question? I know what FTEs are, but under the work-based learning update, you had Cedar with 52 students, Clark Central with 31, and the Career Academy with 38 students, but they didn't have an FTE. Is that because the FTE is credited at their schools, or are these other students not from Clark Central or Cedar Shoals?
No, they are Clark Central, Cedar Shoals students, and that's probably based at the individual schools.
I'm sorry?
That's at the individual schools, not at the Career Academy. And what I can do, if you put that question in the document, I'll be sure to get with, you can answer that? Yes. Thank you.
Because essentially, the Career Academy is not a school, it's a program, and so they don't get FTE dollars. It goes straight to the schools, and so they can't earn FTE for your students that are taking the work, or doing the work-based learning. But those students are connected to one of our high schools.
So they're not in the counts for those high schools. That's what it looks like on the report. It looks like Clark Central High School had 52 students, excuse me, and Cedar Shoals had 52 students, Clark Central had 31, and then there was a 38 just for
Yes.
the Career Academy. So I was wondering if those were homeschoolers or,
No, those are our Clark County students that take their work-based learning through the Career Academy.
Okay.
Because you have students, the Cedar students and the Central students are doing work-based learning, but they are not doing classes at the Career Academy. And so they aren't enrolled at the Career Academy because you can do work-based learning either through your homeschool or through the Career Academy.
okay, so that report is really just about work-based learning. It's not purely out of the Career Academy.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's it for the Career Academy for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis. Any follow-up questions or further discussion about this report? Okay. We'll move forward to the Community Oversight Committee report. Any follow-up information, Dr. Evans?
They met on Tuesday. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend due to a previous engagement. However, the one thing that is popping up that the board, we need to actually discuss is Ellard Hall. That's something that we're going to have to take action on sooner than later
Okay.
at some point. But yeah, I wasn't present at the meeting, so I'm not sure what was discussed.
Okay.
Can you say again what the thing is that we're going to take action on later?
Ellard Hall.
Ellard Hall. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay. And do you, well, I guess you'll update us, Dr. Evans, as far as, I was going to ask if you anticipate when that might be, or like when it might be coming our way at least. But-
That is something for us to discuss. I mean, we're kind of there where we're going to have to start making decisions
okay.
about what we're going to do with that particular piece of property. We've done some things, you know, we've tried to get someone to like take the house or do something. But it's coming to a point where, you know, for us as a board, we're going to have to make some decisions because, you know, there are folks in the community who are beginning to make moves themselves where that could be taken out of our hands. And so I think the sooner that we start dealing with that issue and then come up with a definitive conclusion to that issue would probably be the best.
So is that a SPLOST project?
John? Yes, no, but it's,
That's a project in which we presented to the board before of removing that building and building a registration complex over there so we can have registration in one place. We got some opposition to it and had some community leaders wanted to discuss other ways of doing that besides removing the building. We're in the process of working with them, having another conversation with them within the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, we will have something to you in February.
Okay.
So my question is it a SPLOST, is it because we bought the property with SPLOST dollars, or why is that a COC
It's a
issue?
question because, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gilbert, but some individuals seem to think that falls under the Historical Society. Yes.
Again, SPLOST dollars?
SPLOST dollars. What do you mean, SPLOST dollars?
It's on the COC. The COC only talks about the SPLOST dollars, right? SPLOST projects?
so this is where we split hairs a bit. in that because Ellard Hall was part of this purchase, and that some of this purchase was a part of the SPLOST, that somehow you could make this indirect argument that it should be a part of this discussion with the SPLOST. For me, I think that's kind of a stretch. But again, I'm not a lawyer, but Mike is, and he can tell us what to do with
COC is
that.
not really a legal entity. It's not a committee of the board. It's designed to be, I mean, they exist in a lot of places.
Can you turn the microphone on?
Okay, I guess I need to get closer. COC is not a formal creation of the board or of the district. A lot of places have them. It's what the initials stand for, a community oversight committee, and it's supposed to be organic from the community to oversee how SPLOST money is spent. And that's sort of part of the whole SPLOST pitch when you're asking the voters to approve this is, hey, there's going to be a committee of citizens who are watching the school district and the county and how they spend this money.
I'll ask it again next time. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like you may still have some questions and need some clarification on whether it's SPLOST or not. And I think what I hear is that at some point, we'll need to make a decision based on what has already been shared. I don't anticipate those plans have changed for the district.
No. Yes, we will have something to you in February.
Mr. Denson?
Thank you. And I do think it is a good point that Ms. Davis brings up, though, that the COC is the eSPLOST Community Oversight Committee. And so if it's not a SPLOST project or being funded with SPLOST dollars, it would be odd that it's being discussed there. So, I mean, if there's, I guess I'm a little concerned there's confusion if it is or not, because I think that should be very clear if it's within the COC's purview.
And so I guess the question is, with the proposed renovations, would that take SPLOST dollars?
Yes, it would take SPLOST dollars. Yes.
Don't those dollars have to be allocated?
I'm sorry, I cannot.
What was
hear you.
that, Ms. Davis?
Yeah, but we don't just make up SPLOST projects, right? Those are predefined or allocated? Is that how that works? Those were we vote on those, do we not?
Right, so the referendum approved by the voters gives a lot of flexibility, which means the board has a lot of flexibility. I believe, and I'll defer to Mr. Gilbreth on this, but his department, they keep a running list, and sure you have that constantly as you're looking at your projects and what's next on the list, but that's always a tentative list, and it's always subject to change within those broader parameters of the referendum if circumstances so dictate.
All right. So more to come. More discussion regarding SPLOST. All right, we have item D, the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and I think this committee just recently met, if I'm not mistaken, and there were some notes placed here for us. Dr. Yeager, if you want to share any information that you would like the board to have, or sort of in addition to this?
Well, just I did upload both the agenda for the meeting last night and the minutes from the meeting in record time. I got them to you in 24 hours. And it lists in those publicly accessible minutes all of the members of the committee, and then the charge of the committee, the lenses through which all of our work will be done, which includes health and safety, equity, fiscal responsibility, waste management, and career readiness. And everybody agreed that those were the appropriate lenses for all of the subcommittees to work through, not just one of them. Leadership's the co-chairs were elected. Erwin Green and Ramsey Nix will be the co-chairs for the full committee. And then subcommittees were created. We have 5 subcommittees, high-priority subcommittees. The first one is HVAC because of the pressing need to buy new HVAC systems. There's an energy committee. There's a transportation committee. There's a green infrastructure committee, and that is defined in the notes of this meeting, what that means. Generally, it means outdoor planning that helps accommodate the high heat and the stormwater events that are related to changing climate and things like playgrounds and outdoor properties. And then the final committee is the one that's going to help find the extramural funding for a lot of the things we're going to try to do, get involved with figuring out what the various federal and state agencies are willing to pay for. So again, these minutes are public and people can see them. The meetings are public. The subcommittees will probably be meeting by teleconference over the month in groups of 3 and 4, but the open meeting is every month on the second Tuesday at 4:30 in the board offices.
Okay, thank you for that, that information and update. Follow-up discussions or questions? Mr. Denson.
I just want to make sure, I read the minutes, that was great, and the timing was perfect on that. I really feel good about that. I think that what I don't understand, based on the breadth of this committee and the things that they're looking at and the number of people that are engaged here, what is that deliverable going to be?
So if you read the charge is to present quarterly ongoing reports, but ultimately, after 1 year of work, a list of priorities and a plan. And I believe Mr. Green noted a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and a 10-year plan, if appropriate, for what actions these committees recommend for the district to take. So they're not taking any action, but they will be making recommendations to us. And there will be some recommendations, I imagine, that will come to us sooner than later. In particular, I believe members of the board have asked for recommendations in terms of an energy audit. And so that's a very soon recommendation that will come, I believe, pretty soon. Others are the interest in solar on the Clark Middle development and whether that's possible given the lateness of the planning, et cetera. There'll be some recommendations around that too, I suspect, that will come sooner than later. But generally, the idea is after a year of work, we will have recommendations for the board.
Great.
Thank you. Mr. Denson.
Thank you. And yeah, it was a very, I think, productive first meeting. I'm very excited about what we're going to get. And I just wanted, I was impressed to see Dr. Yeager was able to pull together such good minutes within basically 2 days. So not even 2 days. Yeah, I'm very excited about the work that's going on here.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And just another thank you to Dr. Hooker. I know this was something that you and your team were open to sort of some either feedback and really collaboration. And I think my hope is that this will be really a great example and model for the ways in which communities can work with schools, and schools can still have a degree of autonomy, but also work together to figure out some pressing issues as it relates to climate, sustainability, and things of that nature. Dr. Yeager.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That was one of the best parts of last night, was having all the district representatives talking in the same room with the Athens-Clarke County experts and the UGA experts and the other experts in the room. So and they were very open. It was really exciting to see all that.
All right. Okay, we will move forward to the Athens Area Community Foundation. I did not see any reports in my area. Ms. Hensley.
Yep, we actually have our first board meeting the 20th next week for the year. But that might be something that I bring up to the Athens Area Community Foundation. I can see that being a partner what you're doing with fund holders. I know that, and I'll keep everybody posted on that, but potentially partnering with the Athens Area Community Foundation, because, you know, there's certain fund holders have specific desires of what they want to see done with their funds, and some of that's even been brought up already. So I will keep you all informed once we go to this meeting, but that's next week. So on the 20th, I'll have a report in February.
All right. Thank you. Envision Athens.
Envision did not meet for the month of December. We'll be meeting on January 18th for our next meeting.
Okay. And I know with this Envision Athens, I know it sort of came up in our conversations before about possibly having Envision Athens here to just share some information and present. And for some reason, I thought we came up with a date or a general month, but I'm losing it. So, but that is something I know that majority of the board at some point had said that they were interested in. So it may just be something to keep on the radar for future planning.
I'm happy to bring that up at next week's meeting to try to get something confirmed and connect, obviously, with Dr. Hooker so we can get it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I can't remember I know we've had the conversation, okay. I just couldn't remember like what was the result of that. Ms. Hall, I saw you raising your hand as well.
Yeah, that was during my tenure on that committee, but we did express that they are very interested in coming. It was just contacting and making sure they got on the agenda for the right meeting. I had enough time to give a presentation, but they were very eager, so I imagine that still is the case.
Okay. All right, thank you. We will move forward to the facilities report. First thing is our SPLOST monthly report.
I guess everybody has got the invitation to culinary ribbon cutting next Friday, 12:30 to 2. So don't eat lunch, come hungry. They're going to feed you well, so we'll get to kind of showcase that program for you. So that's a good thing. Projects in progress, Clark Middle School and Cedar Shoals are our two primary ones that we're working on. Clark Middle, we're trudging through the mud and rain and working on that. Again, we're shooting for a summer occupancy as well on that, but we're on schedule, so to speak, as of today. Cedar Shoals, tonight we're bringing to you an amendment to the GMP for demolition and HVAC costs. So upon approval, the contractor is going to mobilize next week. We'll be putting up temporary partitions and get going on the selective demolition on phase 1 in the May building, where the 9th graders who moved out to the trailers, we're going to occupy that space and start work on that as well, and order the HVAC equipment out there. Some other projects in the works. The out to bid right now is a biomanufacturing lab for the Career Academy. Bids are due next week, so I will bring that cost to you at February's meeting as well for approval. And that's a summer project. We're going to be doing the biomanufacturing lab, some modifications to the audiovisual lab, and some minor changes as well in that facility. And then finally, we're working on HVAC for 5 schools. So the drawings are about 90%. Hope to have those out to bid within the next week or two. And we'll, if we can, get them to you February. If not, I may have to try to squeeze something in before the March meeting so we can get some of that equipment on order for summer work coming up. It's kind of a brief, quick synopsis there.
All right, thank you for that. Follow-up questions for Mr. Gilbreth.
So unfortunately, I will not be able to attend that wonderful open house that you guys are having. So can you change the date?
Well, just tell me what you like what your favorite lunch is, and we'll see what we can work out.
Actually, I'd like to have a tour at some
Okay.
point,
We
because
can
I
do
think in the past, the board got a chance to see things before we went public with it.
Okay.
And to sign off on stuff, so I'd really love to see if we can start revisiting those particular things that give us an idea of what we're voting for.
Okay. I can do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis, I'll be glad to eat your share on that part there. That's one, okay, we can do that.
All right, any follow-up questions for Mr. Gilbreth?
Now, when we get to these items that we're going to put on the agenda or whatever, I have some questions, but I'll wait until we get to those because they're specific to these things. Okay.
I'm sorry, say that again, Ms. Davis, I want to be sure.
I said I do
understood.
have some questions about a couple of the things that are on our agenda later. So I guess we'll talk about them, the HVAC and things like that, when we get to those line items. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you, Mr. Gilbreth. We are going to move forward with our facilities update. This is item B.
Right, and we have Mr. Green, who's in charge of our custodial staff, will do a brief presentation, and we'll move from there.
Good evening, board members. My
Good
name is
evening.
James Green, and I'll have a custodial update for you. We're going to start with our departmental structure. We have an administrative assistant.
I'm so sorry, can you speak a little bit close to the microphone, or I don't know if it's possible to turn the microphone up?
I'll just come a little closer. Departmental structure, we have our administrative assistant, and we have 4 custodial supervisors. In fact, they're in here tonight. Our first custodial supervisor, Stevie Bolton, he's been here for 13 years. Stevie he's new to the role. He's doing a great job, and we expect big things from him. Jeff Lattimore, he's been with us for 30 years.
Yeah.
Jeff is our resident historian. If you need to know anything about the district, Jeff can tell you. When he first started, he was making $4.65 an hour, so he always tells that story. Next, we have Don Mitchell. He's been with us for 10 years. Don doubles as our training manager. Don is the future of the department. He's very knowledgeable. He's definitely going to take my role one day. We're training him to do so, and we expect big things out of him. Next, we have Sandra Cooper. She's been with us for 8 years. Sandra is a bulldog. I'll tell you what, she is the best operations person that you want to meet. She really does a good job, and she has that know-how. Next is Caitlin Benedict. She's been with us for almost 2 years. Caitlin is our administrative assistant. She is the brainchild of our department, and she's doing a wonderful job, and she keeps us in line.
Awesome.
I'm James Green, and I've been here for almost 6 years. In total, we have about 70 years of CCSD experience. Back in 2002, there were some studies done about air quality, cleanliness, and its effect on academic performance. In our department, we do believe that we have a bearing on student outcomes.
I like that.
We do this through our accountability inspections. We have a 3-tier accountability inspection. The first is tied to our KPIs. The custodial supervisors perform 30 inspections per month. And then the second tier, I go out and in the evenings, or late evenings, or night, and I do 15 to 20 per month. And then we have a paid third-party vendor that does the other inspections. And this is an example of some of the feedback that he gives us. This is not a good inspection. However, it's an honest inspection, and it gives us an opportunity to be better. We take these tools back to the schools and to the custodians so that we can do a better job and have a better, clean environment for our students. During the inspections, the inspector takes pictures and he gives us just a visual of what we're doing and how we're doing so that when we do go out, we will see that. That's also another example of our inspections, visual inspections. Retention rate. Now, the retention rate is very important because if you don't have the proper employees or enough employees, you can't get the school environment clean. In the 2018-2019 school year, that's when I came in, we had 83 employees. Now, we're allotted 155. We didn't hire anyone during that year. I was given directives by HR because HR was actually running the department at that time. And so we didn't hire a lot, and then we had an abysmal retention rate of 80.72. In 2019 to 20 school year, we did have an uptick. We had 92 employees with 22 hires and 86.96 with an 86.96 retention rate. In 20 and 21, well, let me go back to 2019 and 20. That was when the advent of COVID happened. And so we had to pivot on what we were doing, the hiring, some of the initiatives, some of the protocols we were putting in place. And so we lagged in hiring a little bit, but we still had an uptick. In the 2021 school year, we're in the heart of COVID, and then at the back end of that, we're coming out. We maintain an 85.44 retention rate. And then in 21-22, I will pause here too because we want to give a special acknowledgement to Dr. Blankenship. She came in with the equity initiative for all stakeholders, and the custodial department really benefit from that. Not just Dr. Blankenship, but our current board and our former board also had a hand in that. So our custodians are paid on par with the three largest districts in Georgia. We have APS, we have DeKalb, we're comparable to them, and then we pay more than Gwinnett County. So that's a big, and then we had an uptick. We hired 46 in 2021, and we had 134, and we had a retention rate of 91. And then last year and this year, so far we got 151, hires 18, and a retention rate of 86.7, and we are 98% full at ops. Professional development. Professional development is really big in our department. We believe that we want to provide equity, we want to provide leadership development, and we also want to provide future opportunities. 22% of our workforce is Hispanic. So one of the initiatives that we had, we partnered with Athens Tech to provide ESOL classes for our Hispanic employees so that they will have the same opportunities as everyone else. Also last year, through the University of Georgia Continuing Education Program, all of our head custodians took the Myers-Briggs Personality Test assessment in context to their leadership styles. That went over really big, and we're going to do that again this year. And also, all the administrative staff also have opportunities. We've taken classes from project managers to facility management.
That's awesome.
Equipment. Our equipment is on a 5 to 10 year rotation, and so we're in that 5 years. I came in 18. We're in that 5-year rotation, so we're going to surplus the equipment that's out there that need to be surplus, and add another. In the last 3 to 5 years, we purchased about $300,000 worth of equipment. So we're getting ready to purchase another $150,000. And this is very important because our average age of our employees is about 65 years old. And so we want to ensure that all the equipment that we do buy is friendly to them to use. And that is my presentation. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I want to thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed reading that today, and I'm especially proud because my grandfather was a custodian for his entire working life, and that every time I walk into City Hall, I get a sense of pride at how well that building has been preserved through the efforts of the people that work there and take care of it. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, any additional questions? Ms. Hull?
Wait, come back. So I really enjoyed that presentation. Thank you. It's so awesome to get to see the department and to put faces with names. Thank you so much for everything that you do. We, or at least me, we always get calls saying, you know, hey, there's something wrong in the bathrooms at the high school, or there's not tissue, or there's not soap. We know, right, that it is a lot going into that, and there are layers upon layers as to why that happens. And just your experience and what y'all are seeing out there in the field, is there anything that the board can do to support to make those situations a little bit easier to manage, like the restrooms and those types of things? What can we do to help mitigate that?
I don't think there's anything that you can do directly. I think we've put protocols and procedures in place. In most of our schools, we have a designated bathroom person. That's a restroom person. That's all they do all day. It just takes a little accountability. I think our students are learning that, and we'll just do. It keeps us in a job as well, so we're not complaining.
Thank you for what you're doing. Please let us know if we can support in any way.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. You're allocated 155 employees, and you're operating with 98?
No, ma'am, we are at 151.
Okay, excellent. I didn't see that number. Thank you.
We're at 90%.
90%, okay. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Additional questions? Mr. Denson?
If I could bring you back for a second, Mr.
Yeah.
Green. Yeah, thank you for this information, and it's very helpful. I just had a couple questions. One was, I was looking over the accountability inspections example here. What exactly is the restroom machine?
It's a multifaceted machine where it has a sprayer, it has chemicals in it, and it's just it helps us to sanitize and disinfect more quickly than doing it with our hands.
Okay, because I saw that, like, saying that some of the issues would just be, if the restroom machine was being used more often. And so I guess this is just piggybacking a little bit on Ms. Hull's questions, but so the current budget for, say that, that's not a budget issue, that the bathroom machine was not being used enough, it was just more of putting that policy back in place, or would y'all benefit from do we have enough of those restroom machines and such throughout?
Yeah, we have all the equipment that we need. It was user error. We just didn't get the job done. And when the inspector comes in, it's a snapshot. He could come in at 2 o'clock, and at that time, it's a full day of environment. And
Yeah.
so,
Sure.
So it's just a snapshot, but it still keeps us honest and makes sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Additional questions? Okay. I'll just sort of highlight what's been said. Dr. Hooker and Mr. Green, I think, thank you for this report. We don't get to always put faces to names. Like, I know we see each other around the district, so thank you for that report. I also love that we get to see the examples that you provided. As you mentioned, sometimes there were things that needed to be done, and so it wasn't always like perfect examples, and I really appreciate that, as well as having very clear progress, like measure, like with your performance indicators, as well as like retention rate, because most times as board members, we'll get to see like the personnel list and if somebody's leaving or coming, But it's really good to be able to have this really synthesize and boil down to these particular numbers. So thank you very much, Dr. Hooker and Mr. Green. And thank you, because I know, we all know, I don't know if we express it enough, that we're very appreciative, and that we absolutely know that you started off saying that student outcomes, and it's no way for students to be successful if they are not in environments that are safe and sanitary. So thank you.
And can I add in a piece? I do want to thank Mr. Green and his team for this presentation, but most of all, I want to thank the supervisors for working with our custodial staff and keeping it very professional. And the hard work you do is, our principals and our staffs are very appreciative of the work that you do. Again, thank you.
All right, we will move forward to our, well, Dr. Hooker, I'm assuming that's all for the facilities update? Okay. We'll move forward to policy updates, and right here, we decided that we needed a little more time with some of the policies from last month because we were in December, and the district will just need a little bit more time to put together some drafts of the feedback that we had the last time. You see here that we have the future policy discussion, so that will generally stay right there, just so that it's on our minds in the event that there's something that comes up that we need to go and revisit. Ms. Hall.
Is this what we place on the radar, policies that we want to discuss?
Yes, if you have some, yep.
Yes, I would like
Okay.
to review the student tribunal policy, the student disciplinary hearing policy.
Okay. And as with our policy process, it's just much easier, and that's why we added it here, just to simply get a nod from the board that there's general consensus that everybody is okay with placing that on our future policies.
Yeah, so is that one of, that we can do in concert with the code of conduct?
And probably appeals too. I would think they all go right there together.
Okay, great.
Okay. And so, Ms. Davis, was that a specific recommendation for code of conduct?
That it be in concert with that,
Okay.
because that's where the discipline matrix is, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a general consensus from the board that those things are, okay? Dr. Scott.
Just as a point of reference, you all will receive the draft of the code of conduct at the February board meeting as well.
Okay, that'll be good, so it aligns. I know that there was something that went out that asked for public feedback, and we do appreciate that as well, because I know sometimes the public may miss that, but reiterating that there is an opportunity for feedback for our discipline, our code of conduct. So. All right, we are at number 7. Dr. Hooker, these are our financial reports, November.
Yes, we will ask our CFO, Mr. Chris Griner, to come and do a presentation for you.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker. Thank you, Dr. Gant. You have before you the financials as of November, not September. November 30th, year-to-date 5 months. Actual revenues, $132,443,221, which was about 3.6 more than our projected budgeted revenue, which again is based on historical trends, so there is some fluctuation there with some of the timing of the receipts. So nothing out of the norm there. Actual expenditures, a little over $83 million, which again, due to timing differences, was about $3.3 million higher than budgeted expenditures. Total fund balance, we ended up at the end of November, $103.6 million. Budgeted was $103.3 million. Lisa, if you could go to the next. This is kind of the balance sheet fund balance projection. You can see the month of November, we're right where we thought we would be. Again, typical of all school districts, we're at the peak right now due to our property tax receipts. As the bulk of those have been received now, our revenues will kind of go down. You know, we'll have our state QBE mostly as most of the receipts we'll have each month. So the fund balance will start trending back down to around 25%, which is where we started the year at. Again, no unusual items. We're right on track right now. You have the supplementary reports, which is the invoices greater than $10,000, and then also just a recap of legal and board travel as well. Again, I will, in the board update that goes out next week, you'll have a snapshot of December, so like we've been doing, just so you kind of have a preview before we do the full financials at the board meeting. So I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
All right. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you all.
Can we add this to consent, or do you want to vote on it separately when we go to the board meeting?
Are you all okay with consent, or would you prefer separate? Can you speak in your mic, Ms.
I'm
Davis?
so sorry, yes, because this is the public's money, I'd like for us to always have a public vote on that, separate vote.
Okay, all right, and so it won't be on consent, okay?
Thank you.
All right, we'll move forward to item 8, and these are items to consider for our consent agenda. And also, you know, obviously, if you have any questions or further discussion related to these, item A is our December 14th work session meeting minutes. Okay, all right, we'll keep that on consent. What about our personnel list? All right, consent?
Consent.
Okay, and then here we have item C. This is approval for the Rutland Network equipment purchase.
I have questions.
Sure.
So, I don't understand the context of network equipment and recabling in the facility. Do we have plans for the facility? Is it up for use, or has there been any discussion about how we're going to utilize it?
Yes, I am working with our team on tomorrow to present that plan. I will share that in the Friday update. You will get a detailed list of how we will use that facility.
So is this before the fact, or?
Before,
is
What's your
this-
question, Ms. Davis?
So is this preemptive in terms of just, is necessary to do this in order to support that plan, or is it just, we have some infrastructure and support money, or what's going on here?
there's work that needs to be done on this as it comes to the network equipment. I'll let Mr. Duke give you more information as to why that is needed.
Okay.
When the former tenants moved out, they took the equipment with them. It was not our equipment. So in order to access the internet, we need to go install network equipment over there.
Okay. So they were able to strip equipment out of the building?
It was theirs.
Wow. Was it copper?
No, the data cabling is rather old. This is our attempt, while the building is still empty, to cable it correctly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? All right. Consent, or would we like to vote on this separately? All right. Okay, Ms. Davis, is that consent or no?
I won't have any new information, and we're going to be voting on it in the next part, right? So, yeah, just leave it on consent.
Okay. All right, we will move forward to D. This is our HVAC and demo costs for Cedar Shoals the Cedar Shoals renovation, Phase 1.
If you didn't ask me a question,
Any questions?
it just wouldn't be a meeting, you know. It just-
Okay. So I was trying to find my question that I wrote down, but I'll just go ahead and tell you from memory. It's a huge thing, right? We're redoing the entire facility.
Right, so phase one is the two-story building, the main building where, you know, it was built in 2001.
Right.
So phase one, and we're doing the old field house ag science building as well. So this is all the HVAC and selective demolition in those two buildings that we want to get started on.
So there was a previous field house prior to the one that we just built?
Yeah, from 1970 back in the day, but ag science was primarily in there, and they have, I think, some coaches' offices and some weightlifting room as well.
So I didn't see anything that I remember, and trust my memory is not that great all the time. But did we get any plans for this building, and is there a building committee? Have we addressed some of the concerns coming from sustainability and all of these issues?
Yes, we've met with, Cedar Shoals has a local building committee. We've met several times. They've listed all their wants and needs. We've gone through our priorities from systems renewals that we need to do because it's 20 years old. And this is kind of the first step. And it's, again, we have to do it in phases because it's occupied. We're only moving the ninth graders outside. So we're going to do kind of the building's divided in quadrants. You've got four sections. So this summer we're going to be working on 2 of them. And this releases us to get started on that. So pretty much the phase, the main building is going to have 2 summers worth of work in addition to us starting now while we have the ninth graders moved outside. So we're replacing the P-TACs that are in the classrooms. That's kind of, if you had to rank on your highest and lowest efficient heating and air conditioning means, P-TACs is kind of the cheapest. That's kind of your Motel 6 air conditioning that you do. It doesn't do a lot for indoor air quality. So now what we're doing is upgrading to the VRF systems, which is what we put in. We put in all the new schools that we've built recently.
So in one of these bids, I think I read that this building or the HVAC is not going to be LEED certified, or what was that about?
Right, the contractor listed exclusions in his bid,
Right.
so we're not applying for LEED certification, which means we're not collecting all the documentation and certificates and spending the extra money for the paperwork, but we're still doing high efficiency units. You know, we're increasing the outdoor air requirement and things like that. So we're still doing, you know, 85, 90% of what you would have to do for a LEED program. We're just not spending that money. So the contractor says, hey, you're not going to come back to me and make me produce all this paperwork and documentation to get LEED certification because I haven't charged you for that. So that's just his qualification for not providing that service. If we wanted to go back to him later on and say, hey, we want to do that, he would prepare a change order, you know, if there were additional costs involved to do that work.
So how close is this estimate to the actual cost based on our experience?
It's within range on the square footage for, usually you look at a building and you have so many dollars per square foot for mechanical equipment. We're within the normal range of what we're looking at. And we also have a $1.5 million allowance that we plugged in there to kind of fill any gaps that we may run across. So I feel good with this number.
Yeah, so this isn't something that either one of us can answer because I'm still thinking about sustainability and some of the challenges that we have at that high school, especially as it relates to discipline, as it relates to things that are happening in hallways and in bathrooms. And if we have a chance to do this over or to fix this or to redo this, what considerations were given to the current situation that we have?
Well, we sat down with the local building committee, the administrators, and their security people, and we're totally revamping their security cameras and security systems. So that will be an upgrade throughout the school, throughout the entire campus. As far as bathroom situation, we've actually come up with a new design that I can share with you at next month's meeting that we're going to be kind of reorienting and opening up the bathrooms so that the doors actually face the corridors.
Good.
kind of like you're at the airport, and you'll visually be able to see, if you go into these rooms, it's going to be individual rooms. And
Excellent.
it'll be male and female, so it'll be whoever wants to use it, and it'll be open and visible. And the administration, they love the idea because their goal is to minimize those areas and nooks and crannies where people can hide and do things, and this design is going to help that. So we're kind of, taking
I'm
this-
very encouraged by that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're listening, and they're, we're proposing solution and ideas to, what their needs are, so we're trying to meet all those needs that we can.
I think there's some things too around aesthetics of having more open space and more airy spaces so that people don't feel like they're, kind of sequestered into something and they're covered by walls. And so are there opportunities in this design or this redoing to create some of those kinds of spaces?
Yes, we're
And
at,
if I may just hop in there, like after this question, maybe if there are other questions, and then we'll certainly circle back around if there's time. Mr. Gilbreth?
yeah, we're expanding the cafeteria, so we're 1,000 square feet on either side, and we're also doing an outdoor pavilion area outside of the cafeteria that'll be an open-air pavilion with a roof, with some fans and such, that the students will be able to go outside as well. So we're trying to, again, meet all their requests and needs that they've been asking for.
Okay. Were there any other questions from colleagues? Mr. Denson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Gilbert, so I think you stated that if we did decide it would benefit us to get the LEED certification and such, that will still be a possibility with these HVAC systems?
It would be for the entire project.
Right, okay.
So you have to have documentation from the architect as
Right.
well as the contractor to submit for the LEED certification. Typically in the past, that's several $100,000 it costs, probably more in today's dollars. And in my mind, it's better to spend that money on the students versus getting a piece of paper that says, hey, we're platinum, or we're bronze, or we're gold. Usually when you try to do LEED, you start with the development of the specifications and such, because that's part of the process, is that you got to start from the get-go to do that. And trying to play catch-up, it just costs you a little bit more money to do that. So.
Okay, yeah, and the reason I asked is some of the things that came up during the sustainability committee, talk about how much federal funding and reimbursements are available because of the Inflation Reduction Act, and just thinking that a lot of times those kind of certifications, sometimes documentation is necessary to be able to get those reimbursements. So I'm just wanting to make sure, I like it if we have the flexibility to be able to go back and get that in case it does financially benefit us and therefore financially benefit the students to be able to get that, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Additional questions? Dr. Evans, Ms. Hull, Dr. Yeager, Ms. Hensley, Ms. Butts, Dr. Anderson? Okay, Ms. Davis?
Thank you. Do we have room for apprenticeships? Are we working with our career academy and any of our career pathways to engage these people in this big renovation or redoing of Cedar Shoals?
I know that Carol Daniels is looking at some ways, some different things that we can do, so we're in discussions with them, so.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for indulging me.
All right, so do we want to keep this item D? Are we going to keep it on consent? Consent? Okay. Ms. Davis, were you going to speak?
Nope, just consent.
All right, moving forward to item E, the approval of the superintendent's revised contract.
Is that something we do in executive session?
The taking action, no, we would take action here. I would imagine if there are specific questions or follow-up discussion that would be done in executive session. Mr. Pruitt?
Yes, you could discuss it. I thought that had been done at the last meeting, and it was on the agenda just for the vote tonight, which, as you say, would be an open session.
Yes, it has been. It's been discussed. I was
Just
just
not
trying to
consent.
clarify that should there be a question or further discussion, that would need to happen in executive session, correct? Okay.
I think we vote on that separately.
Okay, so we will move that. And we do have an executive session added in the event that we need to go and huddle and just chit chat briefly. So that is moved from consent, Ms. Palmer. The Cedar Shoals Network Data Cabling Purchase. Okay. Consent is what I'm seeing. All right. Item G, our budget amendment number 2. And this is our retention supplement. And Dr. Hooker, I think you gave us an overview or heads up, I think when we met.
Yes. Gave an overview. This is to ensure all employees receive the $1,000 supplement in which the governor passed before the Christmas break, and just to get your consent to move forward with this.
Thank you. Okay, we'll keep that on. A couple of questions. I'm sorry, Mr. Denson.
I just wanted to clarify, which I think is fantastic, but Dr. Oker, so not only though are we doing a $1,250?
No.
No. Okay.
It's $1,000 when you, and correct me if I'm wrong, our CFO, Mr. Griner. Once it's $1,250, but you take the taxes off. For that, it will wind up being $1,000 for each employee to receive.
So, but we're paying the taxes on it so that they
Yes.
actually receive $1,000?
Yes.
So, I mean, that is, and there's definitely an increased benefit that
Okay.
I can say my employer did not do that, and I would have appreciated it. So I think that is definitely a nice thing. And then also, I believe the $625 to part-time employees,
Yes, and that will equate to them receiving the $500.
in which that's not something that's covered by the governor's order, right? That's something that we're doing.
Some of it, we have and I don't know where, I'm here getting feedback. We have more employees than we're allotted to do, so we're paying all employees. So that's, I believe it was a total of,
Yeah, we received, I'm sorry, you want me to, we received 1.5 million from the Department of Education. That was for 1,382 employees. We have roughly close to 2,500 employees, so that's the majority of the difference, the $1.8 million. And we have flexibility to use local funds or ARPA funds. So we're going to use local fund. The proposal for y'all to approve is for local, but we may go back once we finish out ARPA or we get close to finishing, we may move those funds back over. Yep.
Okay. I just thought that was a bit exceptional, and so I definitely appreciate you, Dr. Hooker, and staff for going to the extra point to make sure that every one of our employees got that money, and also that they actually got the $1,000 that they read about in the newspaper, so thank you.
Ms. Davis?
So I heard you say 600 and something for the part-time employees. Why? I saw that in the early head start, but did we do that for our employees as well?
they're part-time employees, so they get half of the supplement that was granted by the governor.
That's by law? Or is that how it was structured, to give them half?
That's the direction in which we're going, and all of the state school district superintendents that I've spoken to are following that same lead. If you're a half-time employee, you get half of that supplement.
Okay.
It's reported as wages, right? It is reported as
apologize.
wages, right? It's earned income, or is it something different?
It's reported as wages. That is correct, Ms. Davis, as earned income.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So do we want to keep this on consent? Okay. All right. We are at H, right? Did I?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the intent to apply for the early Head Start funds. Okay. All
Consent.
right. So we have that on consent. We'll move to field trips.
Consent.
All right. Field trips are on consent, and before we get to executive session, in the event that we need executive session, earlier in the agenda, we had the nomination of president and vice president, and so we are back at that space right now. And if you remember, we made just some slight changes to the policy so we don't have to use a ballot sheet. We are going to open up the floor for nominations for president first, and then we'll open up the floor for nominations for vice president. And then after that, at our next meeting is when we take action on those individuals. So the floor is open. Dr. Evans and then Dr. Yeager.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Mumbi Anderson for president.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Dr. Anderson for president. Any other nominations for president? Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll open up the floor for nominations for vice president. Dr. Yeager?
I nominate Tim Denson.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Tim Denson for vice president. Okay, thank you, Dr. Yeager.
I nominate Dr. Mark Evans.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mark Evans for vice president. Any other nominations for vice president?
I'll add one more. I'd like to nominate Tish Yeager, Dr. Tish Yeager.
Okay, and I just want to be sure that everyone understood. Can you say that again? Dr. Yeager, okay. All right, so we have another nomination for president, Dr. Tish Yeager. Okay, and so what I have here is our president nominations are Dr. Anderson, and our vice president nominations are Mr. Tim Denson, Dr. Mark Evans, and Dr. Tish Yeager. Is that everyone's understanding? All right, and so what we will do is mention during our next meeting, we'll take action, and if you look at our policy, we simply vote on individuals in the order in which those nominations are received. And so, all right, we'll close the nominations out, just sort of looking at faces, okay? All right. We are at executive session. Is there, Dr. Hooker and Lisa, Dr. Anderson, just remind me just to be sure I'm not forgetting anything that definitely puts us there in executive, okay. All right, and any other reason that we need to go into executive session related to any things that we're taking action on? I'm sorry, Ms. Davis?
Did we finish the evaluation?
The evaluation.
The superintendent's evaluation?
The discussion that we
Has it
had?
been done?
I'm sorry?
Has that been done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right, so I'm sensing that there's no need to go into executive session. Okay, all right, we are going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 6:45. If you remember, I think we're going to take group pictures and individual pictures for anyone that wants them. I think that's what Ms. Palmer said. Yep.
Individual now, and I think we're going to do group after? Yeah, after the board meeting.
Okay, so individual pictures now, if you want like updated pictures for the website, and then a group picture afterwards, after our regular meeting. Okay? All right, we are going to go ahead and actually get started here for our January the 11th business meeting 2024. We're going to call the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Dr. Hooker, if you would conduct roll.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley.
Here.
Ms. Claudia Butts. Ms. Linda Davis.
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager.
Here.
Mr. Tim Denton.
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson. Dr. Lakeisha Gant.
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hull.
Here.
And Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a quorum. We are going to move forward with item 3 on our agenda, which is the silent meditation and pledge of allegiance. If you would join us for a moment of silent meditation. Thank you. Now, if you're able, if you would stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Okay, we will move forward to our recognitions and awards. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask Dr. Cindy Moore, our PR Communications Director, to lead us in this process.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker, and good evening, Dr. Gant, board members. We have a couple of recognitions tonight, starting with our January Employee of the Month. Our Employee of the Month for January is Mr. Bobby Bales, who is one of our custodians at Timothy Road Elementary. Mr. Bales, if you'd come on up and join us, we're going to say a few nice things about you. Now, as you know, after tonight's presentation, just go right on there, take center stage. We have dozens of hardworking custodians across our district who really are the backbones of our schools and buildings. And we believe Mr. Bobby and his school community, as his school community affectionately calls him, is the perfect representation of that. Mr. Bobby is in his 10th year with Ccsd and his 3rd at Timothy Road. He was nominated by more than half a dozen staff members who praised his strong work ethic, attention to detail, and friendliness in creating and maintaining a school environment that is always clean, safe, and welcoming for students, staff, families, and all visitors. Media specialist Jennifer Rodriguez wrote, "Mr. Bobby is the hardest working employee at Timothy Road. He is willing to jump in and help at any opportunity. He has a great attitude and always finds time to listen or tell a story. He looks for tasks to do when all on his list are complete, and he never puts off for tomorrow things that can be done today. As he says, you never know what may pop up unexpectedly tomorrow." Do you say that, Mr. Bales? Yes. Ms. Winter McBride, one of several other teachers who nominated him, writes, "Mr. Bobby has pride in his job. He keeps our school looking its best. He is always willing to come to my rescue and assist me, whether it's to move heavy items, fix something for me, or just ask about my day." Next slide. All of these sentiments were summed up by Timothy Road Principal Cedric Payne, who said, "Mr. Bobby's dedication to his role is truly inspiring. He goes above and beyond to ensure the safety and cleanliness of our school and demonstrates a strong commitment to the well-being of students and staff. His positive attitude, joy, and enthusiasm for his work create a welcoming atmosphere, making everyone feel appreciated and cared for. Mr. Bobby approaches his responsibilities not just as a job, but as a mission to contribute to the betterment of our school community. Please join me in congratulating our Employee of the Month, Bobby Bales." Now, we'd also like to thank the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce, who's provided you with this wonderful gift bag, and the many local businesses who support our Employee of the Month program and contributed to this gift bag you received tonight. And at this time, I know you brought some friends and coworkers with you, so we'll ask them to come up for photos. And board members, if you would like to come up for a photo as well while they're making their way, let's go ahead and do that. Do we need to come over here? Okay. Yeah, you guys come on up first. Well, that's okay. Yeah, there we go. You should. You're with a celebrity tonight. Just kind of scooch in there and. All right. Come on this side. That'd be great. All right. Look this way. Move in just a little bit. Thank you. You all may have a seat, but you stay right there, Mr. Bales, because we're going to get a photo of you with the board. Come on in. Okay. Ms. Butts? Yeah, just come right on in there, right behind Ms. Hull. Right there. There you go. Thank you very much for all you do, and again, congratulations. It's a little bit heavy. Thank you. You can go have a seat and go through your bag now. Thank you, thank you. It's an honor to honor you. So, it's your night. Be careful. Congratulations, we appreciate it. Please remember that anyone in the Ccsd community can nominate an Employee of the Month, and you can find more information about that listed on the link on our slideshow. And speaking of custodians, we'd also like to take just a moment tonight to acknowledge one of our most recent retirees, Mr. Zeddy Ware, who spent nearly 13 years with the district, primarily at Barrow Elementary. As you know, over the last year, we have periodically presented sick leave payouts to our non-TRS retirees with over 10 years of service. Mr. Ware, who's moving to Florida with his family, was presented with a check by HR earlier this week in the amount of $5,250. He was go ahead. He was unable to join us tonight, no doubt getting ready for his move to Florida, but he was able to stop by earlier for this quick presentation, and we just wanted to be able to publicly acknowledge him and thank him for his years of service to Clark County students and staff. So please join me in thanking and acknowledging Mr. Zeddy Ware. And finally tonight, we have one more special recognition. Dr. Gant, would you come forward? Come on. It's your turn to take center stage. I'll ask our board manager and Dr. Hooker. You thought we forgot, didn't you? On behalf of the superintendent, the board manager, the board, and Clark County School District, we wish to thank you for your years of leadership as board president. We are quite sure that when you assumed the role of president in 2019, you had no ideas of the disruption that 2020 and beyond would bring. However, you accepted every obstacle the district faced with thoughtfulness, and we applaud you for leading with grace and integrity. Although your seat during these meetings will change, we know your commitment to our students will remain steadfast. You can give her her gift. Let's. We will ask the board to stay around for a few minutes afterwards so we can take some board photos. But at this time, that concludes our recognitions for this evening. And I'll turn the floor back over to the board and Dr. Gant to share any recognitions that they may have. Thank you.
Thank you all. So it is time for board recognitions, and if I may take the privilege of starting, I try to allow my colleagues to go first, but I haven't really gathered all of my thoughts. I think a lot and write a lot, and so I'm sure more will come, but I did not want to miss the opportunity to say thank you to my board colleagues. It has been a long road, and I don't want to say too much because the tears will flow, but I will say thank you for allowing me to lead, to make mistakes, to get it wrong a lot of times, to really to just grow stronger in my ability and my confidence to be a leader. I didn't get on the board with this in mind, and so it has been an honor and a significant growth opportunity, and one that I'm grateful for. And I know that I would not have grown even this far. I still have a long ways to go, but I would not have made the strides without you. Even our new board members and previous board members, Dr. Hooker, Dr. Thomas, Dr. Means, Lisa, who has been here throughout everyone. And so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and for the trust. So I'll open up the floor for any recognitions, announcements that you all may have. We can start with you, Dr. Evans.
I'm wearing yellow tonight, so I'm very bold. All right, so I want to just first of all acknowledge the CYDO, Ccsd, elementary and middle school basketball league. I managed to work concessions with them last Sunday, and there was one student that was able to come for her cheering team. So shout out to Madison, who carried on the cheers for Betty Henderson Holston Elementary School all by herself for the entire game. And I wanted to just acknowledge that. She was amazing. And then next, I have to say to you, Dr. Gant, this has been an extraordinary journey. I certainly appreciate and applaud and respect the way that you have handled this Herculean task, because it has been difficult and it has been long, and I have seen you grow, and I am so proud of the work that you have done with us and for us, and I wish you tremendous success in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Butts, any recognitions or announcements? Okay. Ms. Hensley, Dr. Anderson.
I want to piggyback off of Mrs. Davis, thanking you for your service, and I have particularly enjoyed working alongside you over the last couple of years as your vice president, and it has been an absolute honor to work beside you and just get all of the insight and wonderful ways that you see our community, you serve our community, and you are our community. And I really got to see that working alongside you, and I really appreciate having done that with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. Thank you. All right, we will move forward to item 5, if that is all of our recognitions and awards. Okay. From my understanding, Ms. Palmer, we do not have any public comments. Okay. so there are no public comments tonight. We are at item 6, to amend or adopt the agenda. The floor is open.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Ms. Hensley. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of adopting the agenda before us, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Okay, the superintendent's report, Dr. Hooker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Announcements for today. The UGA MLK breakfast will be held Tuesday, January the 16th. Our students' art and writing will be recognized at this event as we share our annual MLK video. We will also honor those contest winners at our next month's board meeting. Athens Area Human Relations Council will recognize 10 of our high school students, 7 from Cedar, 3 from Clark, with scholarships this Saturday at the 45th Annual MLK Awards Banquet. Next Friday, January the 19th, we will celebrate the grand opening of the Athens Community Career Academy Yellow Jacket Bistro with a ribbon-cutting program and tours. January is the National Mentoring Month. The Clark County Mentoring Program breakfast will be held January the 24th to raise awareness and funds for this program. Reminder that on next Monday, MLK Day is Monday, January the 15th. Also, Mr. Vernon Payne, who served faithfully on this board for 39 years, he passed his service. He served on the board from 1979 to 2018 and was a loyal public servant who was committed to improving the education and the lives of Clark County children. In April of 2022, we named this meeting space in his honor. I do want to say he is well known throughout the state. I believe, if I'm incorrect, Ms. Davis, you correct me, in that he started the breakfast at the GSBA, the morning meditation, and that it is well attended. He was an icon here in this community. He left a legacy for us to follow. We are very appreciative of his family allowing him to dedicate 39 years, that's a long time, to this community, and he did a great job. Congratulations to Mr. Bobby Bales from Timothy Road for this month, for being named the Employee of the Month. And last, I would just like to say, Dr. Gant, thank you for leading. Thank you for your leadership and leading in difficult times. It was never easy to be board president during the pandemic, the other issues that came up with the board, but you did it gracefully, and we're so thankful for your leadership. That concludes my comments for this month. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hooker. Moving to item 8, this is our consent agenda. The floor is open.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all right. We have a motion by Ms. Hull, second by Dr. Yeager. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
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 Okay. Moving to item 9, these are our action items for individual votes. The approval of the superintendent's revised contract.
I'd like to make a motion that we extend the contract to Dr. Hooker.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Evans, a second by Ms. Hull. Any follow-up? Well, I guess we should take action. All right, all in favor of approving the contract, the revised contract, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Claudia, how did you? Oh, okay, I must have missed that. Okay, and were there any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. We'll move to item B, the November 2023 financial report.
I move that we accept the financial report as presented.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Ms. Butts. Any follow-up conversations or discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the financial report, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries, unanimous. We will move to the election of the board president. We have a nomination on the floor for Dr. Anderson as our board president. The floor is open for a motion.
I move that we close nominations and accept Dr. Anderson as our board president.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Ms. Hull. Any follow-up conversations or discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving Dr. Anderson as our president, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Dr. Anderson, you going to vote? Okay. All right, so that motion carries. That's unanimous. All right, we will move forward to opening the floor for a motion, and we do that in the order in which the names were received. Help me be sure I'm correct. I know we just talked about this.
That's right, we do it in the, and actually, it does not require a motion, so you can just call for a vote on each name. And the order was Mr. Denson, Dr. Evans, and then Dr. Yeager. And then once there are 5 votes for a nominee, Robert's rule says there's no need to go to the next one.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Pruitt. Okay, so we'll call for a vote for Tim Denson. All in favor, if you would raise your hands. Okay. All right, we have 3 votes for Mr. Denson. Okay. And all in favor for Dr. Evans, if you would raise your hands. Okay, that is 6 votes. And does that stop it? Just
That's it, yes. So, Dr. Evans is your new vice president.
okay. Congratulations. Yes, for Mr. Denson, Dr. Evans. Okay. Okay, so we have, that was 6. Was that 6, Ms. Palmer? Okay. All right. So we have now Dr. Anderson as our president, and we have Dr. Evans as our vice president. And so they will be taking the reins after 7:26 p.m. Thank you so much. And I just forgot to say this, but let me just say also, I know I thank my board colleagues and you, Dr. Hooker, but also district, the staff and colleagues, thank you for your support. I know we sometimes work together in a variety of different capacities, working directly with Dr. Moore, Ms. Palmer, works with in this role all the time, and Mr. Pruitt. So thank you again for your support as well. All right, we will move to our adjournment, and this is number 10.
I move. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hull and a second by Ms. Davis. Seeing that there are no objections, we are adjourned at 7:27.
That's good.
And please stay around for like 3 minutes so we can get a group picture.